If I wanted to open up 10 locations from scratch, I'd do this. What I'm going to cover in this video is how to open up as many locations for your gym or fitness business as you want. And what I'll be diving into is the hub and spoke as well as the triangle method. If I was going to open up 10 locations from scratch, I'd do this. Just two things, by the way, not 57 tactics, not a 100-page business plan. Never even really done one of those anyway. But instead, I'd be focusing on two main ideas: the hub and spoke expansion model, as well as the triangle method. I'm going to share those two things with you today. I'm also going to share with you a lot of the mistakes gym owners and business owners do when they're opening brick and mortars and trying to go to multiple locations. And the reason I'm sharing this, this is literally what I did, how I went from 1 location to 8 locations. And then if I was to open up right now, which I am actually kind of looking at some properties right now, but if I was to do it again, this is exactly what I would do to be able to open up a multi-location chain as fast as possible, as profitable as possible. So today, let's dive into how to open as many locations as you want. Really what I want to share with you is it's really these two concepts. It's the hub and spoke and it's the triangle method. Both of these I just kind of accidentally stumbled upon. And just some context so you know that I'm just not making this shit up or it's just some sort of theory or anything like this. I did start with just 1 location. I first actually opened up my gym with zero business experience. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just a good trainer. And then I opened up my gym. I had no investors. I had no trust fund. I just had a small space and frankly, just a lot of grit and a refusal to give up. I would also say I had a pretty damn big chip on my shoulder because anything that I do still currently, and especially back then I wanted to be the absolute best at it. I had this idea that I had to prove a bunch of people wrong, but we're not going to get into my own trauma or whatever bullshit that I got carrying, but just keep that in mind as we're going here. But I did open up my gym. I opened up my first location. I had really no money. I opened up my gym with under 20 grand. And then it's pretty much funded all of my locations, my 8 locations. I then eventually franchised my business. So then I went from that 1 location, ton of grit, opening that up. I then went to 3 locations and that took me a couple years. It took me about 3 years to go from 1 to 3 locations. Is that right? Yeah, 1 to 3 locations took me 3 years. Then I went from 3 locations to 8 locations in 2. I didn't open up another location for a couple years because then I decided to franchise my business. So I got that entire process set up. So it took me to go from deciding to open up my last 2 locations to then opening up my first franchise location was 2 years. Same amount of time had I just actually continued on this path, on this model, with the same amount of money that I invested to open up my first freaking franchise, I would have, rough estimate, would have gone from 8 locations to 20 locations. I think I could have actually gone faster than that, transparently, because the last 2 locations that I opened up at the same time. It started getting a lot simpler. I really had this dialed in. But to get there, along the way, I made pretty much every single mistake that you could make. I opened up locations too fast. I hired too slow. I fired too slow. I fired too fast. I also trusted the wrong people. And I did sign some dumb leases. I'm not going to get into one today, but I did sign a lease of a location that I never opened. And that cost me 60 grand. I decided to pull out before opening, though it was a primo location. It would have been my flagship. But if there's something that could have gone wrong, I have done it. You name it. But there are 2 things that I honestly accidentally did right. And that's what I want to cover today. These 2 things were the crux of why I was able to open up so fast. And there's some foundational stuff that maybe I'll throw in, but these 2 things allowed me to open up so fast. I was able to either be profitable or break even by the time my doors opened up, partially because of what we in big time teach inside of the academies are really my ability to attract new members and new clients into my gyms, and the way that we structure our offers and the pricing allowed us to just absolutely knock it out of the door. My last 2 locations that I opened, by the way, inside of the first 12 months, one did 380 grand, the other one did 420 grand, which, mind you, was a couple hundred G's of profit at each location. The second year that both of those were open were 550 grand. So opening locations, scaling them, getting them profitable, I was really effing good at. There's a reason why private equity wanted the business. And a lot of that I just accidentally stumbled on it. So the first thing I'm going to be talking about today and exactly how to do it, pitfalls and all that good stuff with it. So it's something you need to keep in mind. And this was really the crux of how I was able to open up a new location after new location after new location without actually having to take any loans or any of that stuff. And there was a fundamental belief that I have that got me there. But anyway, I treated my original gym like a hub. That was my flagship. It printed cash. It also printed talent that I could then feed every new spot that I opened. And there's a very strategic play here that I think is extremely important if you're trying to do multiple locations. So, but you'll see really as how this plays off as I grow. I then accidentally put my first 3 locations into a triangle. I did not intend to do this, but there was a very specific reason as to why I opened a 3rd location, and it was the unlock. Because actually location 1 to 2, I actually screwed up. If I was to do it again, I don't know if I would do those 2 locations. So when I share like kind of the this triangle method, and also there's another piece to it, I'll share kind of how I would change it moving forward, and also how I did change it moving forward. But that 3rd location, I realized something, because actually that 3rd location, this is I think a really important lesson. I opened and it was my best location. As I scaled, it was still, of my 8 locations, it was number 2. And that was the location that people told me not to open. They were like, you shouldn't open in that market. That's a terrible market. Don't go there. I was like, nah, I got some leading indicators that are showing me that it's actually going to be really freaking good. So I'm going to go open there. I like in what I did at that location of how I opened it changed my mind, or it blew my mind, and it broke beliefs of what was possible for me. And it was really the foundation that allowed me to scale, and essentially in this new model that I have, and that, honestly, that we teach. That was extremely important. Now, these ones were about like 30 minutes apart from each other, but there's a lot of other things that were really, really particular. And I'm going to make sure that like I teach this, because this is where honestly a lot of people screw up. But at the time, I really did not realize how powerful this was. At the time, I really didn't realize how powerful this was. And looking back, like those 2 decisions of really how I open locations and the fundamental like kind of like structures behind it, that to me are no brainer, but I realized nobody else was doing, was why I could keep opening up location after location after location without things collapsing. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how to use these 2, the hub and spoke expansion model and the triangle or straight line method. It's really like the triangle play, but that's what you want to do for your first 3 locations. After your first 3 locations, then there's a little bit of a different play that you can go ahead, a different move that you can go ahead and use. But I think this is actually extremely, extremely important. As we go into this, like how you do 1 location would be different than how I do 3 locations. How I'm going to do 3 locations is going to be a little different than how I do 8, 10, 20, and all that stuff. But I do think the sweet spot for gym and studio owners is 3 locations. Like that's where you can tap into incredible wealth. Like if you do that, you can stack 7 figures and then multiple 7 figures. And now you have a really awesome asset that you can sell for multiple 7 figures. So just do the math on like what can actually be done. So with 3 locations, it creates an unlock for you. And actually running 3 locations, in my opinion, is easier than running 1 location. Multiple locations, though, is not for everybody. So I do want to put that little caveat, that little asterisk there for you. So number 1, I want to talk about the hub and spoke method. And it's really important as I go into this, like you're not trying to build actually like a bunch of clones. Every single gym is going to have a little bit of its own personality, but a belief that a lot of people have is like my market's unique, all this stuff, brings in those factors. And I will say that there are better markets than others. Like that's it. That's why I like the game of multiples. I like having multiple locations. And actually sometimes the markets that I think are going to crush sometimes don't do as well as I thought they would. And some of the markets that I didn't think would do as well do extremely, extremely well. I saw this recently with one of my clients. His first location is exact example of the hub. Like it absolutely crushes. It does 80 to 90 grand a month. It's ridiculously profitable, but he had that, and we started working together around like 40, 60K months because he saw that I did multiple locations. He wanted to do it. That location really then went and kind of like feeds the rest of the game plan going forward. But his second location that he opened, we're like, oh, this is a better market. This is going to absolutely crush. This is going to be great. It does 60K months and it's very, very profitable. By his standards, it's not good enough. But for other people, it would be, a dream gym. His third location though, so then we went and opened up a 3rd location, and the 3rd location I thought I was going to do okay, to be honest with you. Murdered, absolutely crushed. Like it is already going to surpass location number 2. Incredible. Then once he hit 3, now he's already on 4, which is pretty cool. But that is just something I just want to like put a caveat on, is like with multiple locations, I'm going to say this now before I forget, I also have to be, so I'm going to come back to that, but with multiple locations, it's going to be different than really running a single location. It's a completely different business model. So if I want to have like 1 location, so I was going to talk about this later, but I'm going to go there now. If I want to have 1 location, then I'm really going to try to optimize that. And actually, in fact, I might want to have multiple services inside of the business. Let's say I'm like large group training, and they might want to have small group or semi-private training, and maybe even have like super duper high tier, like one-on-one training, though I'm not a super big fan, but there could be ways, or like super, super high ticket plans. Then I might also be like, hey, I got general population, then I got sports performance, and I can really make this single location absolutely crush. Like we have clients doing over 150 grand a month out of a single location. So like you can do that. And it's just a different way to optimize. And most likely you're you're going to have some capacity, like your attention, your focus is going to have to be there. It doesn't mean you're going to have to be there all the time and be in like the weeds of stuff, but your presence is, I think, extremely helpful. But now I'm running a single location that's a little bit more complicated, has a lot of services, and that's just like the services. There could be other products and revenue streams on top of it, but that's just something to actually like really keep in mind. That's like how I would absolutely crush one location. Going multiple locations, I need to have it super simple. It's usually just like one type of service. If you look at like franchise brands that have multiple services inside of the fitness space, a lot of them struggle. Like on the outside, you're like, oh, this looks really cool. It's a really killer location. Like it looks beautiful. And then you look at the P&Ls and you're like, well, this absolutely sucks. And they're super distracted. Instead, the one like franchise brands and businesses that have multiple locations that really do well, it's super simple. They focus on really like one type of client, one type of service, and they really just nail that, and they make it so it's super repeatable, and they just open up a new location, do the same thing in the location after location. The other thing, so I have to have it super simple. It's like really just one service, maybe two, but ideally I want to keep it one, and there still can be multiple revenue streams just in a different way. But then I also have to be okay, like location one that I was just talking about, if I have that single location that's super primo, 80, 100, 150, whatever out of that single location, but like it's going to be, I want it operating at like perfect efficiency. It's 100 out of 100 because I'm super involved. Now, multiple locations, I was actually okay with it doing like 80% of what it could be if it was just a single location. So for instance, if I had a location doing 800 grand, if that was my only location, I could probably do $1 million out of that location. But now I'm getting to play in the game of volume. If I have multiple locations and all are spitting 200 grand in profit, and also it's operating completely without me, well, now I just got a much bigger pie. Now I have 1.6 million in profits at the end versus, okay, maybe I got that other one. Instead of doing 200 grand, I'm like busting my ass to get it to 300 grand in profit. Well, I'd much rather take the 1.6 than the 3. That's just kind of the example. So if you are going to go multiple locations, you have to be careful that you don't get too caught up in it, but understand that, like, you know, location is probably going to do like 80, 90% of what it could if like you were super duper in there, but you have to be okay with that. So anyway, that was the whole long like tangent I went on. Like, yes, you are building the same model in multiple locations, but don't expect it to be a clone. It's not going to be exactly the same. Every market's going to have a little bit different character, but like you want to build your model that it can open up in a lot of locations. So you're not just trying to build a bunch of clones in like a bunch of different areas. Fortunately, I didn't make this mistake. Again, I kind of stumbled on this, but a lot of businesses inside of franchise world do this. They're like, hey, I'm going to open up a location in New Jersey, and then I'm going to go open up in California. It's like, what are you doing? Like, part of like why number 2 works is because of not doing that. That's what I mean. You want to have like your flagship location, your primary location where like the model was proven. Then it's like, cool, I'm going to use that. I'm going to create spokes. I got my main one, I got my primo one, and then I'm going to go create some spokes that are networked off of that. It's not just like I'm placing this in a bunch of different areas trying to do it. So with this main location, this one is going to feed the rest of your locations. Instead of opening all over the place, I'm going to have that main one. It then proves the model, and then I start expanding outward. So when I have now this main one where I can, I use initially to kind of train team to go off, I can still use it to then bring team members to train there initially. It's the proven model. It's where then like the rest of the spokes go. It kind of sets the foundation of where my locations are going to be. I'm not making the mistake of going all over the place or anything of that nature. And I use the profits from that one to open the next location. And I can use those profits to open up the next location. But generally what I like to do is I like to take that concept, and then it's like location 2 feeds location 3. I can have team members train at location 2. I can have team members train at location 1 to then go to the next location. And the way that I kind of also did my locations with the team is like, hey, you could have like a primary, I just had 2 full-time employees is how I would honestly operate the business up to like 30. I could do that to 40K months, honestly, but like to like 30K. And then I might have a third team member. That third team member can take me to those 40, 50, 60K months. I'm a big believer in full-time, by the way. Like, I don't believe in part-time. There were certain locations that did have some part-time because at the time it mattered. But if I'm opening up a multiple locations, I need people that are building careers, being passionate about it. But then I would have that person that's like running a location, and maybe I had a number 2, the other person in charge. Maybe that person that was running that main location, let's say it's location 2, maybe they stay at location 2. Then the person that just learned underneath that individual, if they wanted to, they could go and they're ready. They could go be the one who then launches location 3 and is the manager of that location and the head coach. Or what could end up happening is maybe that person that did location 2, they want to go be the one who does location 3, and the person that was number 2 now runs that location. That's how I was able to kind of do it, where it's continuity, where I wasn't starting from scratch in every single location. Like, the people already knew the exact system, they'd already done it. It made opening up locations really, really easy. So instead of starting from scratch with like 2 brand new people at a location or something like that, or a bunch of part-timers doing all this stuff, the training was really, really cut down. So it allowed me to really open, and it gave a career path to people inside of my organization, which is extremely, extremely important. I want them to want to be with me and have that ability to grow and scale with me. So now that you understand like the hub and spoke and what that model is and how it works and just some kind of like some nuance to make sure that you're doing it properly, let's go into going into really the number 2 point we're going to talk about today before actually putting it together, which is the triangle method, which is what I did for my first 3 locations. And then that's how I would do it. If you want to have just 3 locations, like follow the triangle method. And then how you can expand off of that is using kind of like either straight line geography or continuing to just do the triangle over and over and over. When I opened up location 1, I was just really fortunate where I was looking in a really, really nice market to open up my location. And I had somebody tell me, hey, make sure that your rent's 10% of your gross revenue. If I wasn't told that, I probably wouldn't have made it past like 90 days inside of my business, transparently. So location 1, like kept that in mind. I had no idea what eventually I was going to be able to build and what was capable inside of this industry. So location 1 was like, cool, how do I keep it as cheap as possible? It was like $1,500 pretty much. It was a little bit under that for my rent because I thought like 10 grand, 20 grand would be absolutely killing it. Then location 2, I went and opened because I had, and this was kind of like the foundation where I realized like why I did number 3, but I started having people come to my location. And the rule is kind of like in a gym, you're going to have people travel about 15 minutes to your location. I started having where my location 1 was, I started having people come to me from where I ended up opening up location 2. And it was probably like, depending on the traffic, it was like 15 minutes away. Maybe bad traffic, it was 20. So it was, in my opinion, relatively close. Now they both did well, and they were both really good markets. And there was plenty of people that were gonna, now where I went to location 2, that wouldn't come to location 1. And there was some carryover. So that was kind of like the initial idea of how to do this is I wanna open up a location far enough away where people still know of my brand because of people that are working out there, because of the advertising that I'm already doing. But generally it's just a little bit too far away so that they don't they don't come to my location on a regular basis. And I figured this out on location 3, but there's something else that's really, really important that I'm going to come back to though. But like, so that's what I did on location. You know, I had my location 1. I just I found a cheap place. I kept going out in the territory to figure out where I could open up a location. And finally I found a place that was cheap enough, and I did the demo, and I got a shorter lease initially. Then location 2, I was like, okay, like I got this concept. I was still doing my original model inside of the gym, which was just like sports performance and some general population, like semi-private training, opened up out there. And then I realized it just makes like some people would be, if I was at a location, they would come to the next location and all that. So there's a lot of non-scalable things that happened. But then location 3, when I switched my model, that happened with my first 2 locations. I went and switched into a large group, started going more like weight loss and general population, and I started running ads. I discovered how to run paid ads. And then I realized that I had this town that was like 30 minutes away, 40 minutes away, but my offer was so new, so good that I would have people come from that area, come over just for a little bit. Like they would do it for the short stint. If I was running a 4-week program, a 6-week program, an 8-week program, they would come over for a short stint just to do that, but they wouldn't continue in the long term because the commitment to making that drive over and over and over again didn't make sense. So to me, I was like, hey, I need to open up location 3 because I'm seeing a ton of demand. And just from the people that were willing to do it, there was so many leads that were coming in that weren't willing to do it. Now I usually go a little bit less radius, but there's so many people that weren't willing to do that drive. Maybe the people that did were just like, it was so much pain, they needed it right now, or that they did have some friends, because that's the other thing. I want to open up locations that are somewhat, one that takes advantage of the advertising that I'm doing, but then they also know people. So the way I look at it, this is kind of like the 30-minute rule, where I don't want them too close to each other where they cannibalize each other, but they are close enough where my brand, my systems, and my people, they can overlap. That is extremely, extremely important. It's why I'm able to open up so quickly and become so profitable so fast. Is not only was my marketing, and still is, it's just so savage that I can just go into a cold market. But why go in a cold market when I've already been advertising? So most likely people have driven by it, so they've seen it and recognized, like, oh, it's finally coming to my town. Or most likely they have a friend, coworker, family member, relative of some capacity already at one of my locations. So I can then take advantage of the word of mouth when I go open up a new location. Like, that's the fucking cheat code. But I don't want it to be so close that like I just have person 1 going from, hey, I'll go to this location, I'll go to that location. Like, it needs to be far enough out where, one, my marketing isn't cannibalizing it, because a lot of gyms, they make the mistake is they're so close. This is something to avoid. They're just so close that like you're just marketing to the same freaking people over and over. And now you have 2 locations in a town where you should just have 1 location. And that's it. Where it's like, if you just had 1 location, maybe you had a little bit less people, but then you probably would be way more profitable. So I want to go far enough away. I'm not cannibalizing from it, but I'm taking advantage of what I'm already doing, my brand, the people, the advertising, all of that stuff. So that's kind of how I did 3. 3 was the triangle. And I actually pulled it up here. I wanted to show you. This was like the town where my first location was. So this was in Newtown Square. So let me just zoom out a little bit. So you see this little tiny spot. That was where my first location was. My location 2 ended up going in Westchester. So it's like, as you can see on like Route 3, it's like pretty freaking close. As a result, there was still plenty of people that I would target in here, and it was a good dense market that people would come over. And during the day, like traffic out here would become a nightmare depending on the time. This actually worked pretty well, but like I think, and in some of these markets out here, like this is just too far, so I wouldn't be able to take advantage of it and all this stuff. So it made sense. But then when I opened up my third location in Wilmington, in this area out here, so as you can kind of see, it's like point here, point here. I wish I was drawing, so maybe editor, put a little triangle here. But as you can see it, so it's like I went from this, and this was the triangle method, and now I just owned this entire effing market. This is the triangle method that I accidentally stumbled upon, which then I realized now I just built this epic brand that I owned every single thing inside of there, because I'm marketing in this area, I'm marketing in this area, I'm marketing in this area, and everybody in between, and people that live here know people that live here, people that live here know people that live here, and vice versa, and all over. They have friends, they have family. You know, families generally stay pretty close. So now I'm just absolutely able to take massive advantage of it. So that is where the triangle method came from. And that is what I recommend. If you're going to do 3 locations, that's how you want to do it. So you can just own that freaking pocket, as opposed to going to what I then did next, which was like the straight line, which is then I was like, okay, if I'm here, I want to open up 20, but really I like to open up 30 minutes away, because 30 minutes away gives me overlap, but my marketing dollars aren't just like marketing to the same people and overlapping and driving up my costs to myself, but tapping in other people. But if I'm 30 minutes away, knowing people are willing to drive 15 minutes, so it's like, okay, I got that person that's in the middle, they'll go to this location, maybe they'll go location, but that person 16, 17 minutes, they're not going to go there, but they'll go to the new location. That is the point of the 30-minute difference. And a lot of brands do this wrong. They put way too close, and you're just eating your own market. Go a little bit further, and you'll have way more profitable locations, way more people to actually pull from. So then I would go there. That was how I did the triangle method. And then once I did this, my next location, actually, no, location 4 ended up being in Jersey. So I ended up going right over here. This is where like location 4 was. I wanted to tap into Jersey. I just thought Jersey would be a really good market. And that's rare. So like, I guess location 4 I was kind of an idiot with. It was actually a really good gym, but it didn't follow like this process. Like I should have continued going in Jersey, then I didn't continue going in Jersey. What I then did is I went Wilmington, and then I went into Newark. So then I started going in the straight line. It's like, okay, I'm going to go out down to Newark. Newark absolutely crushed. Was my best location. Absolutely crushed. I got a cool story on that, but this video is already super long. Then I wanted to go into Delaware, but I opened up the next 2. I opened up at the same time. So then I went down and I opened up in Middletown, Delaware, which I don't exactly know where we are right down here. So Middletown. So it's like Wilmington, Newark, boom, Middletown. So straight line, but also see I'm kind of continuing on this triangle here. Again, people that lived in Wilmington, new people in Middletown, new people in Newark, and they were able, and this was also like cool up and coming area at the time. So it's a great area now. But it was like far enough away where some of these other ones, like they would just like cannibalize from each other and there. And then we ended up having franchises out in this area, which then again, still went there. Then I would have continued going down into the next one that's like 30 minutes away. At the same time I opened Middletown, I then also opened, so if I go back to my Newtown Square location, so I had that one here. I then started going in the other direction, Springfield, probably somewhere kind of in this-ish area was Springfield. Great location. I opened up this one and the Middletown one at the same time. So as you can kind of see, I started going straight line. So if it was like straight line, it would have been like Springfield, Newtown Square, Westchester, kind of like straight liney, because you could actually take Route 3, I think, all into them. And same thing, if you look at it here, it was, Wilmington down to Newark, down to Middletown, wherever the hell it was. But that's kind of how I then did locations 4 through 8. So 1 and 2, I was kind of figuring it out. 3, it clicked for me. Then all the way up till 8. So after I opened my third location, I opened that in, location 1, then location 3. That was a 3-year difference. Then location 3, I opened up my 4th location the next year, like maybe a couple months later. But then within 2 years, I had 8 locations. I would have been able to go to 8 to 100, as I said earlier, extremely quickly, and I would have just followed that exact pattern. Opening up every 30 minutes away, as long as the town made sense for my model. There's a couple things that, like, based on whether you're doing semi-private or you do like large boot camps and the type of boot camp, there's a couple different things like how I go ahead and pick markets. But if you want me to talk about that, just let me know. But the big thing is when you're doing this is making sure that you're avoiding opening up way, way, way too close close to each other. And opening up in towns just absolutely don't make sense. Don't fall in love. There's a big rule is I never fall in love with the location. You have to be prepared to just walk away and leave it. And that's where a lot of people, like if the economics doesn't make sense, like I don't care how great the market is. If I can't get the rent to be 10% of what my gross revenue is, and since my target is getting gyms to be like, 50 grand, 60 grand a month, 40 grand a month, depending on what it is, depending on like based on the population in there. It's not like a hard, fast rule, by the way, of like, hey, I know this market has this much population, I'll be able to get here. Because sometimes like even smaller markets, depending on how great the product is and great the marketing is and what's already in there, like you can skyrocket in the market. So like just you go find good markets and then just understand that like you're going to have usually a location that's amazing. If you have multiple locations, usually a location that kind of is going to suck, and then the rest do pretty good and hit your targets. And sometimes it just kind of rotates on who the problem child is. But that's how you go around doing it. And then I would just open up every 30 minutes. That's it. So put it all together. If you want to open up as many locations as you want, you got to keep in mind, you got to remember that running one location is going to be different than how you run multiple locations. All right. If I want to have one location, I'm going to make it absolutely primo. However I want, I might have multiple services. If I want to do multiple locations, I'm going to keep the services super duper simple. Really just get known for like one. And it's like they have like one type of chicken and they just become obsessed with it. When you have that one product, you become the absolute best at that product. And then I just go, okay, who's my ideal client? What do those markets look like? Where can I go find those markets every 30 minutes? Then I just open up in that way. That way I'm not hurting, I'm not cannibalizing from it, but I am taking advantage because of my current location, from marketing, from staff. So I'm being able to just take advantage of it. And that's really the key. And when you do this, and when you have a very simple model, that's a very scalable model, and you have your systems dialed in, this is how you're able to open up really quickly. Now, big thing, last thing I'm going to put on, this is kind of how I operated. Other people did it differently. That's why I was able to like kind of grow faster than a lot of other people, is understanding like I was never expecting anything to be perfect. So I look for imperfect action trumps perfect action. So I think speed kills. Once I really got this dialed in, it really clicked to me. I just wanted to go as fast as possible. So that's why like I can follow this exact recipe and I can open up 10 locations in the next year, 100%, starting with that first location, getting it dialed in, getting it proven, and then boom, just go to the next town, the next town, the next town. And then also the faster you grow, that also does create momentum inside of the markets and allows it. But the thing I will never do, and because I have the systems dialed in, I'm not going to open before I'm ready. I can open up maybe 2 locations at a time. Like that's what I could do. I don't know if I would do that. Like I did that at that time. So I felt comfortable, or you could just open up 1 a month or whatever. But I'm going to make sure that that location becomes cash flow positive so that it feeds the next location. And so like, let's say worst case scenario, you have 10 locations that are all growing together. You're not making any money, but at least like then it's like they will make money and it's all going in that path as long as all the math makes sense and your growth plans are dialed in. But generally speaking, I'm not going to make the mistake of trying to open before the next location before I'm ready. That's why you notice it went slow. So usually what happens when you open multiple locations, like location 1 might take you a little bit, then location 2 takes you a little bit, then you open up location 3 and it's like, actually these are operating a lot better without me now. Super simple. I can go location 4. I can then go location 5 and 6. And then it's like, boom, 6 to 20 can go really, really fast. That's just kind of how that snowball effect happens. So anyway, I hope this was helpful. This is how you can open up as many locations as you want. And if I was to open up 10 locations, which I'm actually currently looking at, this is the exact plan of exactly how I would do it. And it's not just fluff or theory. It's what our clients are doing right now inside of the academy. And it's exactly what I did inside of my gym. So I hope you got value from this. If you did, please subscribe, comment below. If you need anything, let me know. Peace.